If you walk through wartime barracks, field depots, or emergency-built structures from the Second World War, one detail quietly repeats itself. The wood looks older than it should, darkened, hardened, weathered beyond its years. This wasn't aesthetic taste, and it wasn't neglect. It was deliberate. During the war, builders didn't have the luxury of modern preservatives, factory stains, or imported treatments. They had shortages, time pressure, and an urgent need for timber that could survive damp climates, rough handling, and long exposure. Out of that pressure came a simple chemical method using two materials nearly every household already had: iron and vinegar. Not as folklore, not as a gimmick, but as a practical way to change how wood behaved. This technique wasn't about beauty, it was about control over decay, moisture and visibility. And once you understand how and why it worked, you start noticing it everywhere in wartime construction, from military crates to field furniture to temporary structures that were never meant to last decades, but somehow did. Why WWII builders cared so much about aging wood quickly? Fresh-cut lumber was a liability during the war. Green wood warped, absorbed moisture, showed damage quickly, and stood out visually. Builders needed wood that behaved as if it had already aged, without waiting years for natural oxidation and tannin reactions to occur. Darkened timber hid wear, resisted visual detection, and absorbed less glare. On airfields, storage yards, and temporary camps, lighter wood reflected light and drew attention. Darkened wood blended into surroundings. Aging timber also reduced the appearance of new construction, which mattered in occupied or contested zones. What rust and vinegar offered was a way to chemically accelerate what nature would normally take years to do. When steel is submerged in vinegar, acetic acid begins dissolving iron from the metal. Over time, this creates an iron acetate solution. When brushed onto wood containing natural tannins, particularly oak, cedar, walnut or chestnut, a chemical reaction occurs. The iron binds with tannins and turns the wood dark, often near black. This wasn't paint sitting on the surface. It was a reaction inside the fibres. That distinction mattered. Paint chipped. This didn't. Wartime builders valued treatments that couldn't peel under abuse. The darker the tannin content, the stronger the effect, which is why certain woods were favoured even under rationing. How wartime builders actually prepared and applied it. This wasn't a refined process. Steel wool, nails or scrap iron were submerged in vinegar for several days, sometimes longer. The liquid darkened and smelled sharp. Builders strained out solids or left them in depending on urgency. Application was crude but effective. The solution was brushed or wiped directly onto raw wood. No sanding finesse, no sealing beforehand. The reaction occurred within minutes, deepening over hours. If the wood lacked tannins, builders sometimes rubbed it with strong tea first, an old trick already known before the war. Tea added tannins, allowing the iron solution to react more aggressively. This layering method shows up repeatedly in post-war accounts from civilian builders and military carpenters alike. Now, why did this method help protect timber beyond just its appearance? Well, the darkening, honestly, wasn't the main benefit. What really mattered were the iron-tannin reactions, which reduced fungal growth and discouraged insects. Combined with the acidity of vinegar, the surface environment became downright hostile to rot. This was especially important in damp theatres like Europe and the Pacific. Timber used in crates, flooring, and temporary shelters, you see, lasted much longer than untreated wood under the same conditions. Builders understood this empirically, even if they couldn't describe it in chemical terms. They simply observed fewer soft spots, slower decay, and less surface mould. In wartime conditions, observation was enough. So, where does this show up in World War II construction and equipment? Well, you can spot evidence of this treatment on surviving ammunition crates, field desks, radio housings, and even improvised furniture made by engineers right in the field. Some resistance workshops actually used it on purpose to make new wood appear old, blending repairs into existing buildings. In occupied territories, this really helped conceal modifications. In military zones, it reduced visual contrast, too. The method crossed both civilian and military lines simply because the materials were universal. Vinegar was food grade, and iron was just scrap. No controlled substances, no supply chain vulnerability. Now, how can modern survivalists and builders apply this correctly today? Used properly, this method still has plenty of value. For outdoor projects, sheds, tool handles and furniture meant to age gracefully, iron acetate creates a finish that doesn't peel and doesn't look artificial. The key, really, is restraint. Over-concentrated solutions can actually weaken surface fibres. Wartime builders didn't worry about fine cabinetry, but you probably should. Filtering the solution, testing it on scrap, and sealing afterward with oil rather than polyurethane keeps the finish breathable. The lesson here isn't about nostalgia. It's about understanding material behaviour under constraint. This wasn't about aesthetics or trend. It was about reliability using what was available. World War II builders didn't ask if something was elegant. They asked if it worked, if it lasted, and if it drew attention. The rust and vinegar wood treatment answers all three. It remains, you know, a quiet example of how scarcity sharpens technique. The knowledge never really disappeared. It was simply overshadowed by convenience. If you care about how people actually built and survived under pressure, these small techniques matter more than grand inventions. They show how ordinary materials were pushed to their limits. If this kind of grounded wartime knowledge matters to you, subscribe to the Wartime Frontlines. Share this with someone who appreciates real history and keep these lessons alive.